everybody, happy June.
All right. Good afternoon.
June. Hey, everybody, happy June.
And happy June it is. Welcome in. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and on BamaCentral.com, a part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. Big thanks to everybody hanging out and joining me on the internet world today. And good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. I hope you guys are doing well. Joe Gaither here for BamaCentral, and we want to encourage you guys to check out all of our other podcasts on the BamaCentral.com broadcasting network. You can find us with All Things Bama and the Blue Collar Unplugged podcast as well. So we're looking forward to have you guys jump on and join us on the BamaCentral broadcasting network. We're going to have a lot of fun today. It's going to be it's a huge day in Alabama Crimson Tide land as the Alabama softball team looks to stay alive out there in the College World Series. And tonight, out here at the Joe, for the first time in 17 years, Alabama baseball is going to be having some postseason play. So with that in mind, I've scheduled my biggest guest on the show so far today. We've only had 10 shows, but with the 10th show, we welcome on Andy Phillips of University of Alabama and New York Yankees fame, one of the all-time greats in Alabama baseball program lore, and has all kinds of experience in the College World Series. So without further ado, Andy, thank you so much for joining me today. I so appreciate you carving out some time in your afternoon to hang out with us today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay? I'm kind of in my truck. Just want to make sure everything's good.
No, I hear you great. I hear awesome. You great, and
good.
I can turn you up in post-production as well, so it's no problem at all. So I hope you're having a good day, and thank you so much for joining us. I like that shirt.
Yeah, that was a quick morning. Grab something to put it on because I've been running around, so I guess it's kind of appropriate for the show, right?
Absolutely. Well, Andy and I actually know each other very, vaguely through church connections. We met a couple different times at Church of the Highlands, but this is really the first extended conversation that I'm going to get to have with you, and I'm really excited about that. Andy, I was preparing for the interview and really felt like very ignorant when I saw the resume. I was like, oh my gosh, I knew it was a good guest, but I didn't realize how big a guest it was. The all-time leader in Alabama history and Alabama Crimson Tide history in home runs. Obviously, one of two players to go to the College World Series, to go to Omaha 3 different times in an Alabama uniform, and really your freshman year kind of parallels with what this Alabama team is facing this year, having not gone to the NCAA tournament in a long time. I know this team went 2 years ago, but hosting for the first time in a long time. So just as we open up and get started, can I get your thoughts on this year's baseball team as we prepare for the regional tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it goes without saying they've been through the ringer a little bit with some unusual circumstances. College baseball in the SEC is difficult enough as it is, and especially playing in the Western Division and the league. I mean, it just it's a gauntlet every week, as every sport is. And then you throw in the coaching change and some of the stuff that's come in. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is obviously these kids have really answered the bell, have performed and played through a lot of. I think sometimes coaches throw that word adversity around just because it makes it sound better. But I think, that is rings true for them. They have faced some different adversity through injuries, and then obviously the coaching change and that unique circumstance. So for these kids to kind of really play well at the end of the year, and put themselves to play well in the tournament and to be in a position to host for the first time that's happened in a long time, I think speaks to just the resiliency of those kids and even Jason Jackson and the guys there and the job they've done.
100%. Then firsthand just how difficult college baseball is, not only playing for the University of Alabama, but also coaching for a long time as well. So you've been right there. You've seen the journey that this program has taken over the last 17 years. Since the last time that we hosted a game, the Joe went through a renovation project, and now here we are. So I mean, it feels like a long time. What does it mean as an alumni, as someone whose blood, sweat, and tears, really a lot of your life has been given to this program? What's it mean to you to see it back to a place of hosting regional baseball?
Yeah, well, it's this is what you want, obviously, and especially with with the stadium coming several years ago. I mean, it's certainly when experiencing that as a player and knowing the atmosphere and the environment and how that hosting plays into potential moving forward. That as a player and a coach is what you're always shooting for, and that goes without saying. The program's had some a lot of ups and downs, more probably downs in the last 10 to 15 years. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly a special for them to be able to host, and hopefully my hope as a former player and a coach that this is just the beginning of a rallying around, not only from the fan base but from the administration and the university, to really kind of figure out what it's going to take to continue to keep this momentum going forward, not only this year but in future years, to put a product out there that everybody's proud of.
100%. You, as we just said, you spent some time as the hitting coach for the University of Alabama. Talk about the challenge that Jason Jackson has faced this year. Jason Jackson going from pitching coach to now interim head coach. Just having your role change in the middle of the year after getting thrown some adversity. You don't expect any staff changes right there in the middle of the year. But if you were the hitting coach at that time, how difficult would it be to change your role mid-season and then obviously sustain or build some success?
Yeah, I think probably the reality is that it probably varies from person to person, based on a lot of factors. I think that's one reason you look at in a lot of sports that assistant coaches, sometimes they make the jump to head coach and they're really, really successful. And then sometimes guys do it and it's probably more challenging because it is a different role. You go from more of the teacher and structure to to the CEO, so to speak. And I think Jason, what little bit I got to know him when he was coaching at FAU and see him out on the recruiting trail. He's a very mature guy. This is not the first time he's had to do that role. I believe he actually was an interim for a time, maybe at FAU. And so certainly I think the more years you get into the game, more things are caught than, you learn more by catching things than you do somebody telling you. So I think him being observant over the years for different head coaches that he's been around, certainly you can kind of rub off on that. And some guys make that transition easier. I think for him, it's just figuring out, how much he's going to invest into the pitching side, when he's trying to run the show. But it looks like he's done a great job of that.
I think so as well, absolutely. Andy, I came to Tuscaloosa as a freshman in 2008, so really my baseball college knowledge is not so good, but ever since I've come to Tuscaloosa, I've heard, the Jim Wells era, we need to get back to the... Talk about playing for Jim Wells and just what he means to the program and kind of just put us in that locker room. What really made him such a special coach?
Yeah, well, first of all, he was and still to this day for me, and this is to take nothing against any of the other coaches or managers that I played for, throughout my career, but he still today is the most organized, thorough coach that I've ever played for. His practice, he was able to see things. We always joke that I felt like he had eyes all around his head. I mean, he could see things, but his preparation was second to none. His attention to detail was like nothing I had ever witnessed, and still honestly never did after that. He had us over prepared. We used to get frustrated as players because we would spend so many hours working on things. Like I remember, bunt defenses and first and thirds and all these things that for 4 years we worked on. And I probably spent a season alone working on those things that we never did one time in a game. But if it ever came up, we were prepared. And so I think his preparation, his attention to detail, he loved to practice more than he loved games, because he just wanted to see, challenge and get guys better. And his intensity, his intentionality was second to none. And so I think, he is, and I say this, and there were a lot of great players and a lot of great coaches, but I don't think Alabama baseball over the last 50 years would have been where it is had it not been for his leadership and influence. And if I'm just being honest, I don't know that people around Tuscaloosa and even the SEC truly appreciate, how good of a coach that he was and what he accomplished in his time there. Because, if you match him up with any other coaches in the league that are Hall of Famers, and certainly they deserve that, he was as good as or better than any of those guys.
Andy, the era of Alabama baseball that you played in, highly, highly successful. Obviously, we just hit in the College World Series, one of two players ever to go 3 different times to the College World Series. Look, it's not something that I've ever experienced as a media member or even as a fan. So what makes Omaha so special, and what is it about that place that really captures the minds of college baseball fans?
Well, first of all, it's the pinnacle of what you're playing for. So that in itself is going to bring an environment that's second to none. Somebody asked me this recently. It's what's crazy is it's really similar to the environment and the experience that you get at the SEC tournament now. I mean, where it's just next level. And obviously when you're playing, when you're playing with that type of thing on the line where you're trying to win it all, it brings an excitement and enthusiasm. And obviously Omaha, over the last, decades that they've hosted it, they've just made it where it's such a special. I mean, they have it. I mean, it's first class. I mean, it's almost like what you experience when you go to the big leagues and play in the postseason. I mean, it's the environment, how you stay, the treatment, the stuff. I mean, it's just, as a college kid, this is stuff that you couldn't even dream of. So the environment they create, obviously what you're playing for, you work so hard. You got all these teams that are fighting for that to be that last team standing. And so, I think, representing the SEC in that and playing in that league prepares you for it. But, the overall experience from the stadium atmosphere to the environment, to just the games itself, there's an energy like no other, and it's pretty special.
You make Omaha as a freshman in 1996, and so obviously you leave upset or you leave disappointed. But what happens in the locker room, or what happens with that group of guys that takes you back there 3 more times, that is able to say, okay, this is a building block, and then you're able to just really build off that, hopefully something that the program now will be able to replicate?
Yeah, again, I think that goes back to Coach Wells. First of all, his leadership, because he had instilled in us what the expectation was. The expectation for him was not to just kind of go make it and show up, but his was always trying to prepare you. I remember many games where we would beat teams in a blowout, and he would be unsatisfied, and you just, as a player, you're going, I don't know if we can ever make the guy happy. But what, looking back on it, and as I got older, I realized that what he saw as success was saying, hey, yeah, you might have beat this team by this, but if you get in that situation in a national title game and you approach it the same way, it's not going to work. And so he was always pushing those buttons. And I think the biggest thing was we created a culture of expectation. And that was with him, was once you tasted it, you knew the talent, you knew the work ethic, and you knew the things that it took to get there. And so we believed it was there. And we knew that, we weren't, certain players changed, but the talent was there, and we still knew, we believed in Coach Wells and his leadership. And so, there just was an expectation that
Oh man, I think I might have lost Andy with a text message on. There we go. Yep, go ahead. There was just an expectation.
There we go. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Sorry about that. I had a crazy call come in, but
it's all good.
There was an expectation that that we had the talent. We knew what it was going to take to work there. We knew we were going to have the leadership in place, and so really, and it was about trying to create that player leadership culture. And again, it goes back to Coach Wells. I mean, I can't even quantify, all the things that he did to put in place for us to have that expectation that this was going to be a thing every year that we were playing for.
Well, you go back in '97 and you make it all the way to the finals, the deepest that Alabama has ever made it. Unfortunately, losing to LSU. Yeah. Oh, what is that feeling like, losing to the Tigers, having that title? Oh, just so close.
Yeah, it's tough. Anytime there's two, for me personally, there's 2 games, I guess, in my life that I have a lot of regret about and how it ended. And it was obviously that one, not coming up on the the short end in that one. And then actually in basketball in high school, a state championship game that we were winning and you lose that. I mean, those are the ones that stick in your craw, when you're standing there with the championship just kind of right at your fingertips. And, that one was a unique situation. We had our best player that year as we were getting ready to go to the regional championship. In the regionals, Roberto Vaz stepped on a ball and fractured his ankle. So, here's a two-way player that's a 400 hitter, hit 20-something home runs, but could just take over a game, and he's missing. And so, I think people forget that, what's interesting about that is the guy that replaced him was actually a College World Series made all-tournament team. He hit 4 home runs. So, offensively, we didn't miss much, but it was his arm on the mound because we got in the loser's bracket and we were trying to piece it together in those early innings to get to our best arm. And we were just an arm short, and that's the difference. And I think that's where you see, that's why the margin is so slim. You don't always, not necessarily, I mean, obviously LSU was a great team.
Sure.
We battled them all year, but in those types of things, it's those little small differences. You get in a loser's bracket and you have to burn up an arm or two, and then all of a sudden it puts you, in a hole. So that, unfortunately, that year we were an arm short, and obviously a really great team beat us, but still proud of what we did.
Absolutely, you should be 100%. You live right here in the Tuscaloosa area, and so you hear all kinds of talk over the last 10 years about football and how successful the football team has been, and also just how competitive the SEC is. What goes through your mind when you're hearing maybe some people who aren't as up on the baseball side of things when you think about just how competitive the SEC is in baseball? Unfortunately, I think it puts the football competitiveness a little bit to shame.
Yeah, obviously, everybody understands. It was no different when I was here. Listen, we understand that football in the state of Alabama and the SEC is king, and it should be. But sometimes the purity of the game of baseball, it being America's pastime, sometimes because it's so football driven now and the way things have gotten, so competitive, it does get overshadowed. And certainly you can see throughout the league that there are certain places that baseball tradition is big, the LSUs of the world and Mississippi States of the world, there's still that baseball tradition is there. And hopefully, in the state of Alabama that people can see that, this is something that can be it'll never be as big as football, but it certainly in the spring can be something that people can be proud of. And so, yeah, I don't think it takes this time of year for people to see, wait a minute, baseball is still pretty good and it's still pretty competitive. And we used to joke when we were coaching there that we always kind of liked when the spring football got over and before SEC media days, because that would be the 2 or 3 weeks that people would pay attention to baseball and see how good of a product it really was.
Well, it really, when you look through the top 25 and 12 of them are all SEC teams, it's like unbelievable when you think about the competition day in and day out.
Absolutely.
And you're drafted in 99. You're drafted in 99, but it takes you till 04 to break into the majors. That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
It's not an uncommon thing for the process. Just what goes through your mind, or what goes through kind of your feelings as you're battling in the minor leagues for 4 or 5 years before you get into the major leagues? How difficult is that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. And, people will tell you, and, when you get in the league, as soon as you get to pro baseball, they're like, hey, there's a lot of eliminators, and if you start paying attention to all the steps ahead or who's in front, if you start letting all these outside factors affect you, you're not going to play. And guys would tell you, just go play baseball. There's so much you can't control. And if you start letting those things, and so it's hard. But fortunately for me, I was able to play and produce and put up numbers right away. And I had, 2003, I was injured, so I missed most of that season. But had a great year in 02 that I felt like I was on the path. And yeah, you start to figure out that pro baseball has, like I said, it has a lot of its own built-in weed out process. And part of that is how can you control the outside factors. And so fortunately for me, when I got in the Yankee organization, there were some good guys that kind of stressed early on, hey, if you want to give yourself the best chance, you have to go play baseball. You can't, and sure enough, when I got there were 4 guys, I think, on the 40-man roster above me that played the position I did. And so if you just looked at that and said, oh, there's no inroad here, but sure enough, it had a way of, if you play well, it has a way of kind of weeding itself out. So I was very grateful to be in a first-class organization with some great managers, some great, infield coordinators and such that helped in my development, and could not be happier about that experience.
The 2004 minor league player of the year for the Yankees, and 2005 basically outstanding rookie in spring training. What is the call? What's the moment like when you get that call up? Hey, you're moving into the major leagues. You're going to get your major league opportunity. What's that moment like for somebody who's worked so hard?
Yeah, it's indescribable, really. I mean, the emotion, that you feel in that moment when you get that call to say, hey, you're going to the big leagues is like, it's something that I'd never experienced. I mean, there's no emotion like it, because you feel like, your whole career, I mean, certainly as you get into pro ball, I mean, that's the pinnacle. And so when you get that call, I think there's this flood of emotions of, all the time you've sacrificed, all the people that have invested in you, all the people that have been supportive. I mean, everybody from your hometown, everybody from where you played. I mean, you just have all these floods of emotions of people that, and gratitude that you're experiencing, that it is by far one of the most emotional moments of your life. And so, I'll never forget the day I got that call and kind of everything that played out. And, those are memories that you'll absolutely never forget.
Okay, and so you get into the big leagues, and it takes you one pitch to hit a home run. One of what I think I read 10 players ever to hit a home run on their first pitch, and not just a home run over the Green Monster in Fenway. Yeah. I mean, tell us that story. Just like, what are you thinking stepping into the batter's box, and then pitch comes, you hit it, you make great contact. Tell us this story.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. I'd gotten called up and really had not played in 2 weeks. I mean, we were kind of, late in a playoff push in the wild card. And so we were more of just kind of insurance players and guys that were trying to, get up there and get a little experience. And so we were actually getting blown out late in the game at Boston. And I mean, literally last minute, Mr. Torrey said, Andy, go hit for A-Rod. I mean, he was already on deck. The inning was starting, and so I go out there, get my stuff, and he tells Alex that I'm hitting for him. So we're passing each other on the way, and he stopped me and he said, hey, this guy, all he throws is cut fastballs. I mean, every pitch is a cutter. So, see something kind of up and in and be ready to go. And again, not having an at bat in a couple weeks, I didn't want to give myself a chance of getting down in a hole. And so I was a pretty aggressive hitter, by nature anyway. And so I just kind of made up my mind, hey, I'm not going to waste a pitch. If I feel like it's close, we're going to get after it. And fortunately, he threw one kind of up and in, and to Alex's credit, he was dead on. And all I was hoping was that it cut, because if it didn't, it was going to hit me about the knuckles. And so got a pitch up, and I hit it. And as soon as I hit it, I thought, oh my goodness, I've hit one. But I've never played on a field with a wall that high, so. A lot of times you can hit a home run and you got it.
Sure.
But with a wall that high, there was still the second guess. Well, I made a mess of it. I mean, I take off, and right as I'm getting toward first base, I'm looking. When I look down to find the bag, I look back up, I trip over first. So I'm stumbling. So I don't see the ball go out. And by the time I gather myself and I look up, the ball actually it's back on the field. And what I didn't know at the time was that it hit about 3 rows up on the back wall, came back on the field. Well, I see Johnny Damon pick up the ball, and he's tossing it in. So I'm thinking, man, I'm kind of disappointed. I was like, it's only a double. Well, I stop at second base, and I'm kind of looking around, and the umpire's looking at me like I'm crazy because I've stopped. And he looks at me and kind of gives me the signal that it's a home run. So I have to start my trot over, and I get to, a score. So I've tripped over first. I've stopped at second on a home run. And when I get to the plate, it was the coolest thing. Some of the first guys I see, it's Sheffield, A-Rod, and Jeter, and they all high-fived me. And when I did, they parted like the Red Sea, and all I see is Mr. Torrey standing there, and he's got his hands up like this going, what was that? And he looked at me and said, son, act like you've done it before, And So anyway, it was a cool experience. It was not the most graceful home run trot I've ever had in my life, but certainly a pretty cool moment.
No, you were just starting the trends of pimping the home run trot.
That's right.
Have you
That's
seen
right.
Jess Chisholm, the Marlins? He stops on third base now
Yeah.
on the
Oh,
trot.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing. I just wish I could say mine was intentional and that I knew what I was doing. Mine was not nearly as cool as what these guys are doing now.
Are you a fan of kind of that flavor coming into the game as it's been over the last 4 or 5 years?
I'm not a fan of where it's gone to some degree. I'm always a huge fan of like having energy with your own team. I know it's an unwritten rule, and I'm certainly not looking down on anybody that does it. I just prefer the celebrations. I don't mind the celebrations in the dugout, but when it gets out on the field and it feels as though it's kind of coming across to the other team, I'm not a huge fan of that. I certainly want guys to enjoy the game, but I think there's ways you can do it within your guys and in that dugout and those types of things, and have just as much fun as you do being out there on the field. But it's just my preference, and I know baseball can be a slow game. Sometimes it can be boring, and people saying that's what's bringing a little energy to the game. And if that's what everybody wants to say, then we'll go with it. But it's not something I would do.
That's all good. What do you think about the disco helmet that the Alabama baseball guys have adopted for their home run celebration? Have you seen it?
Like I said, I mean, stuff in the dugout. Amongst
they
the
keep
guys,
it contained.
Absolutely. I mean, again, I think that's great because it's amongst yourself, and I think it's across the board. I just think when guys are doing stuff out on the field that it looks like you're kind of sticking it in the other team's face. But no, we had a little fun thing when I was at Alabama there. We kind of kept it hidden where it just kind of happened where we were actually on a plane flight going somewhere, maybe Arkansas, and they gave us the snack bag, and there was like these animal crackers, like these Scooby snack animal crackers in there. And we had been struggling, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to have some fun. I was coaching first, and so I put some in my pocket, and every time somebody got a hit, I just ran out there and handed them a Scooby snack. Well, it caught on. And so then it became this challenge. Like, guys were so fired up about, I'm working hard to get a hit because I want to get this snack, And people caught wind of it. And it was, like I said, it was fun amongst our guys, and it was something that just kind of kept their mind free and easy. And I think anytime like that, those guys are good doing that.
I love that. That's a great story.
Yeah.
What's your take on the pitch clock? Because I come from a baseball casual kind of fan. The pitch clock, I've loved it. It's made me sit down and watch games and watch the Braves lately and kind of catch it on Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. What's your take on some of those changes?
Yeah, I wish it would have happened 40 years ago. Because nothing as a player, there's nothing greater than playing behind a guy that works fast.
Sure.
I remember I actually talked to him recently, but when I was in Cincinnati, David Weathers, his son Ryan's pitching in the big leagues now. David Stormy, he worked so fast. I mean, as soon as he got the ball back in his glove, he was ready to go. And as a defender, you're staying engaged. And so, no, I love it. I think, one of the things that's hurt baseball over the years is that, with people being so busy, they're like, man, do I have 3 hours of this slow paced thing to really give to it? So I think, speeding the game up and making it, a little bit more fast paced. And that's why softball has taken off over the years, because it's so quick and the tempo goes. And I think people now, there's not as many people that want to sit down and be slow for 5 or 6 hours. And I'm not so sure that's a good thing, but it's the reality of where it is. And so I like the pace of the game for sure.
Well, Andy, this has been such a blast. I really appreciate you jumping on and joining us. I'll just kind of get you out of here with wrapping up and retouching on the regional. Alabama hosting Boston College, Troy, and Nicholls State. They're going to be Nicholls State tonight at 6 p.m. Will you be in the building this evening, or will you be paying attention, watching over the weekend?
Yeah, I won't be in the building. I'm actually on the road right now. We're running around the state doing some stuff, so I won't be there. But, certainly I'll be kind of keeping an eye on and seeing how they're doing, and hope they do well for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining me today. Please let the people know what you're involved in, any way that we can support you, or any way that we can get behind any cause or businesses that you're a part of.
Yeah, so we're actually in transition. So started some businesses, and we started had Overflow Express Wash that we actually just sold, but we're getting ready to build another car wash and called Mission Express. It's going to be over in the Cottondale area, so that'll be coming hopefully in the next 6 to 8 months. And then just spending a lot of time. Got a foundation that I'm really involved with in Utah, Alabama. Actually, it's where I am now, called True Vine. It's a really cool place that we do character development training. I mean, everything from sports teams to businesses. It's team building, it's community. It's one of the most beautiful places you ever see. So grateful to be on the board there and part of that, because it's a mission I believe in. And so those are the things. And outside of that, chasing my daughter around, riding horses, and playing golf, man. That's what I spend my time doing.
How did you play yesterday? You said you ended up having an event yesterday. Did you do all right?
You didn't have to say we were going good until you had to bring that up.
Oh, no, you went 70. Perfect. Great day.
Yeah, well, we had fun. Nobody got injured. We played in a little scramble. I had to play with a former Auburn baseball grad. So we had a good time giving each other a hard time, and neither one of us played well, so we could just trash each other the whole time. So
That's a lot
nobody
of fun.
got hurt, and we got out of there okay. So it was good.
Those are good goals. Andy, thank you so much for joining me. I taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope you have a great day, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Anytime, Joe. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
That's Andy Phillips joining me on the program today, and I really appreciate it. Wow, easily the biggest get that I've gotten so far since I've joined Bama Central. We're going to continue to try to get big-time guests like that. Andy Phillips, the all-time leader in Alabama home runs with 61, and then he spent eight years in the major leagues with the Yankees, with the Reds, with the Mets as well. So very, very blessed to have him join the show. Appreciative of him joining the show. I know he's very busy with all kinds of ministries. And he said he was in Utah. Very very lucky and blessed that he had some service out there in Utah, Alabama. We love Utah, Alabama. All right, we just got a little bit left on the show today. It's a Friday show. We're going to have some fun for the rest of it. Let's talk about Anthony Rogers. Let's talk about Anthony Rogers real quick. If you don't know the name, you will know the name. Anthony Rogers, the number one running back in the class of 2025. Anthony Rogers, actually, you're going to see on his 24/7 page and all his recruiting pages that he is from IMG Academy, but really from right here in Alabama, Pike Road, Alabama. He spent his last 2 seasons, freshman and sophomore seasons, with the Pike Road Patriots. You might have seen him come to the Tuscaloosa area 2 years ago when they played Hillcrest and really had a great game. But Anthony Rogers, number one running back in the class of 2025, is going to be making his commitment about 3 p.m. Central Time, so 90 minutes away from Anthony Rogers. You're going to be able to look for him on the Twitter machine. We're going to have you covered right here on BamaCentral.com. I'll keep you up to date. We're expecting him to choose the Alabama Crimson Tide. And what's that going to mean for Alabama? Well, it's going to give him 4 commitments in the 25 class, and really, the 25 class is already taking great shape. I know, that's a year ahead. We're looking at the 24s for the next class, but Nick Saban always working 2 years, 2, 3, 4 years ahead. The 25 class going to be highlighted by Ryan Williams, of course. If you haven't seen Ryan Hollywood Williams yet, oh my gosh, he's going to be Tyreek Hill. He's going to be Jamison Williams. He's going to be... he's an incredible player. He's a special player. Wide receiver for Saraland. And then you got two offensive linemen, Mason Short and Dontrell Glover. So your offense, man, the offensive class already taking great shape for the class of 2025. Going to be looking forward to seeing what Anthony Rogers does today. His finalists are Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, and Oregon. So really, you've got to, and Florida as well. But I'm expecting it really to come down to Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn, with kind of Alabama taking the lead today. Again, for our evening slate, we're going to have Alabama softball taking on Stanford tonight at 6 p.m. Our friends Matthew Gibson, Edwin Stanton, and Katie Wyndham are out at Oklahoma City for Bama Central, and they're going to have your coverage starting at 6 p.m. tonight. It's must win. It's win or go home. And really, it's kind of a little bit of karmic retribution, or opportunity to create some karma, opportunity to get some revenge for the Alabama softball team. Why? Because Alabama's matched up with the Stanford Cardinal, and Stanford eliminated Alabama last season. Stanford getting rid of Alabama last year here in Tuscaloosa in the regional. Oh, that really put a damper and kind of really put a bitter mark on the end of last year. So I don't know if our ladies can go out and win the rest of the thing. I think you saw yesterday with Tennessee and Oklahoma having strong showings. It's going to be tough to overcome. I think Alabama, that 6-7, 5-6-7 is really about where they are for this season, 5th, 6th, 7th best team. But you go out tonight, you beat Stanford, you eliminate Stanford, you give them a taste of the medicine they served you last year, and then you just try to work your way through the weekend as best you can. Be supportive of them as best we can, and we'll be following them on BamaCentral.com. We'll be following Katie Wyndham, Matthew Gibson, and Edwin Stanton. And then lastly, of course, the regional tonight. My man Will Miller, myself, and Austin Hannon will be out there at the Joe tonight. So follow us on the Twitter machine at Joe Gaither 6, at Real WB Miller, at Austin Hannon SI. As we're covering Alabama's regional. Man, okay. There were so many more things I could have got into with Andy Phillips. I didn't want to hold up his time. I felt like 30 minutes was probably about the right thing. I wanted, right there at the end when he talked about Alabama and Auburn, to compare the Alabama-Auburn and Boston and New York rivalry. I'll write that down for next time. But just a lot of fun to be joined by Andy Phillips in this last hour. Let's set up the next week as we kind of get. Want to look ahead to the weekend. Next week, I'm going to be joined by Christian Miller, former Alabama football player, on Tuesday. So we're going to talk to him really about all things Crimson Tide football. On Thursday, we're going to be joined by Blake Byler to talk all things Alabama basketball. Lots of roster turnover. Really, hopefully, we're going to see a big man or two join the Alabama Crimson Tide by way of the transfer portal, hopefully over the weekend. Looking forward to seeing that. You can follow Blake Byler. He'll keep you all over the Alabama basketball news and notes. So looking forward to hearing from him for the first time on this program on Thursday. Still venturing out some other guests. Got some other lines in the water, and we'll see if anybody wants to join us Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. But it's been a fun week. It's been the close of week number 2 right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Look, if you're not following us, you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram at Joe Gaither 6. You can find us on Spotify and on Apple Music. The Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, right there, pops right up. Big thanks to Chris Walsh putting me on for another day. Follow him at Writing Walsh. He's the man. And follow Bama Central at Bama Central on the Twitter machine. We'll just keep it rolling next week with Christian Miller, Blake Byler, and more. For Andy Phillips, our guest today, for Joe Gaither, hey, that's me, and the listener, hey, there's a couple of you guys today. I see you, 4, 5, 6 live listeners today. Whoo, that's a big bonus. Maybe it's probably because of Andy Phillips. I appreciate that. So for all the listeners, I hope you have a great weekend. Let's watch the Alabama Crimson Tide softball team go on and hopefully make as much noise as they can in Oklahoma City, and we'll watch the baseball team hopefully advance through their regional and play likely Wake Forest next week. So that's going to do it for us on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central today. Once again, we are a part of the BamaCentral.com broadcasting network, and we want to encourage you to listen to our other podcasts, All Things Bama and Blue Collar Unplugged. For another week, I'll be back with you on Monday. Roll Tide, everybody.